Thank you. Well, how many of you have ever been in a car? The hands up high. All right, then you'll relate to this. If you show me the trunk of your car and you hand me all your luggage, and I mean all your luggage, I'll find a way to fit it all in. Why? Because I'm a good packer. No car, no minivan, no SUV scares me. I can fit it in no matter what you drive. You can call my trunk packing a sword of strength. I can do it consistently well, and I enjoy doing it. I've been called in for the most difficult of jobs. I've volunteered thousands of times to do the trunk packing in my family. I'm the go-to guy of trunk packing. Now, of course, there's a beginning to all success stories, so let me tell you mine. When I was growing up, my dad, everyone calls him Big Lou, he was responsible for packing the family car before all our vacations. So Big Lou would go into the house and he'd grab all the bags, and then he'd take them to the trunk, right outside the trunk, and he'd put all the bags down. He'd stage them. And then one by one, he'd put the bags in the trunk. Except one day, Dad was having trouble finding space in the trunk for one last bag. So he took a step back to get a better look, and he did the typical big man thing where he crosses his arms and starts staring down the trunk. Now I look up at Big Lou, and I see that he's staring. And I look at the bags, and they're not moving. So I step forward, I lean in the trunk, I move a bag to the right, move a bag a little to the left, I move this one back, I grab that last bag, and boink! The bag slips right into place. I felt like I had just laid down the final piece of a jigsaw puzzle. So I looked up at Big Lou. Big Lou looked down at me and he said, "David, thanks. You're a good packer." Now, I was 9 years old when he told me that, and I was so proud. Now, I'm 47 years old and I'm still talking about it. Because what we know in psychology is psychology researchers have found that when you call out the strength you see in someone, you amplify it. When you focus on what people do best, when you thank them for what they do well, you give them a gift of a lifetime. Nearly 4 decades ago, my dad expressed his gratitude. And he did more than that. Like a good leader, like a good father, my dad turned that experience into a story, and he told everybody. And he did one more thing. He made sure I could hear him telling it. See, my dad, when he couldn't find space for that last bag, he could have become frustrated and annoyed. He could have become distracted and impatient. He could have missed the opportunity to recognize his son, the good packer. But he didn't. He thanked his son, he named his strength, and he set in motion a wave of grateful energy that continues today. And that's what makes me so fired up. It's never too late to recognize the good packer in someone. It's never too late to spread gratitude. But there is a problem, and it's real. What happens when you want to spread gratitude, but everyone around you seems to want to spread garbage? I mean, what do you do when you run into bad drivers, rude waiters, mean bosses, bad customer service reps, pushy salespeople, moody coworkers, and even unloving relatives? What do you do when you're doing all the right things and then someone comes around and tries to ruin your day? What do you do about that? This is a real issue. This is an important question. And I have an answer. I call it the law of the garbage truck. Here's my story. I was in New York City 22 years ago and I needed to catch a train. So I flagged down a taxi, I hopped in, and we took off for Grand Central Station. We were driving in the right-hand lane when all of a sudden a black car jumps out of our parking space right in front of us. My taxi driver has to slam on his brakes, the car skids, the tires squeal, and at the last moment, our car stops just 1 inch from the other car's back end. I couldn't believe it. But then I couldn't believe what happened next. The driver of the other car, the guy who almost caused a major accident, whips his head around and starts yelling bad words at us. How do I know? Ask any New Yorker. Some words in New York come with a very special face. It looks something like this. And then he throws in a one-finger salute for emphasis, like I needed that. But here's what really blew me away. My taxi driver, he just smiled. And he waved at the guy. And I mean, he was friendly. So I yelled out, "Why'd you just do that? This guy could have killed us. He could have sent us to the hospital." And this is when my taxi driver told me what I call the law of the garbage truck. He said, many people are like garbage trucks. They run around full of garbage, full of frustration, full of anger, and full of disappointment. And as their garbage piles up, they do what garbage trucks do. They look for a place to dump it. And if you let them, they'll dump it on you. So when someone wants to dump on you, don't take it personally. Just smile, wave, wish them well, and move on. Just move on. So I'm sitting in the back of this taxi, and I'm thinking, how often do I let garbage trucks run right over me? And how often do I let them dump their garbage? And then how often do I take their garbage and spread it to other people? At work, at home, on the street. It was then that I said, I don't want their garbage, and I'm not going to spread it anymore. Like the movie The Sixth Sense, the little boy. How many have seen the movie The Sixth Sense? Where the little boy says, I see dead people. Well, now I see garbage trucks. I see the load they're carrying. I see them coming to dump it. And like my taxi driver, I don't make it a personal thing. I just smile, I wave, I wish them well, and I move on. Here's the lesson. Don't take personally the negative things you can't control. Take greater responsibility for the things you can. You get to choose your response in life, and it doesn't have to involve garbage. A couple of years ago, I was at a Toys R Us parking lot, and I got out of my car. And as I got out of my car, I saw a young boy, his mother and his grandmother, trying to squeeze a bicycle in the family car. Well, I stopped and offered to help. Why? Because I'm a good packer. So I get over there with the little boy, and the two of us are trying to get that bike in the car in every which way we can. And we're going at it, and after about 5 minutes or 10 minutes there, I look up and I can hear that the mother is calling the boy's father to say they might not be able to bring the bike home. We might not find space in the trunk for that last bag. But I waved her off. I said, give me a couple more minutes. Why? Because I'm a good packer. So we went at it for about 3 more minutes trying to get that in until finally I stopped. I stepped back and I thought to myself, we might not be able to get that bike in the car. I might have finally met my match. So the little boy must have seen my face because he put his hand up and he said, wait. So I waited. Little boy reached in that trunk. He grabbed that front tire just a little bit. He moved it just a little to the right. He looked back at me and he said, push. And I pushed. And the bike slipped right into place. I looked over at that little boy and he lit up with pride. I walked over to him. I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, you're a good packer. So I have one wish today, that everyone in the sound of my voice will say, I will go out and look for the good packer in everyone. And I am not a garbage truck. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.